Hi there, and welcome to ESG Explained, where we try to deconstruct and demystify ESG for everyone. You've probably heard of the term ESG a huge amount, whether in the news or in the corporate world. But what exactly is ESG? And why has it become so important to corporates across sectors of the economy? This is a short introductory video into the basic term ESG, what it means, and why it matters. ESG stands for environmental, social, and governance, three factors which can impact a company. Corporate stakeholders have, in recent years, acknowledged that these three factors can materially impact a company, and therefore how a company manages the risks associated with these three factors, as well as tapping into the opportunities that these factors may create, have become increasingly important. Corporate governance refers to how a company's internal structure sets itself up to ensure it's appropriately controlled, that roles and responsibilities, in particular of the board and management committees, are well defined, and that appropriate frameworks and policies and oversight, basically the internal checks and balances of a company, are in place. This is all about how a company's internal structures and processes enable good practice, reducing the likelihood of financial and operational issues. It also keeps regulators happy and helps to preserve the reputation of the company. Of the three ESG factors, governance has probably been around the longest, existing in some form for as long as the concept of a company has existed. Nowadays, legislation around corporate governance are generally incorporated into national corporate codes that act as corporate governance rulebooks, in particular for listed companies. Common considerations for governance include a company's board composition, the diversity of its members, and the members' financial incentives and remuneration. A company's internal frameworks and policies, which include those ensuring responsible behaviour is reflected in business activities and appropriate risk-taking, as well as the controls and checks to ensure that this is the case. Some stakeholders argue that good corporate governance is the most fundamental of the three ESG factors. The rationale being that good governance structures underpin everything a company does, including how it manages environmental and social factors. The environmental factor considers how a company interacts with the environment and has been a huge focus within ESG in recent years, with climate change shooting up the agenda of governments. It includes considerations such as a company's usage of natural resources and impact on natural ecosystems and biodiversity, the energy it uses, the waste it produces, and the greenhouse gases it emits in its business operations. Other key factors include how a company and its business may be affected by extreme weather events and changes to the Earth's climate. The materiality of these factors to a company largely depends on the industry in which it operates. For example, greenhouse gases are particularly relevant to a company in the energy or aviation sector, while a manufacturer, which takes raw materials and changes them into consumables, uses natural resources, and its supply chain will have an impact on natural ecosystems such as forests and marine life. Social factors include those which are relevant to how a company engages with groups of people, such as its employees, including considerations such as diversity, equity and inclusion, working conditions, and health and safety. Its customers, including whether a company treats its customers appropriately and how the company respects the privacy of customers' information. Its suppliers. Companies often have vast and complex supply chains, so how does it ensure that its suppliers consider things such as modern slavery and respects the human rights of its employees when it comes to sourcing its materials? Its local communities. So how does a company engage with local communities, and both how does it minimize impacts to local communities where it operates and positively contributes to them? This is essentially about being a good neighbour to these communities. So as you can see, social factors can be very broad, and it can often be hugely challenging for a company to evidence the lack of bad consequences on the groups of people impacted by its business, as well as the positive contribution that they get. As we've gone through the ESG factors, we've highlighted those which impact a company, such as extreme weather and climate change, as well as considerations where a company has an impact on the external world, such as the waste or greenhouse gas emissions it produces, or the local communities impacted by its operations. This concept is called double materiality, and it simply highlights that ESG issues impact a company, and that a company can also impact on these issues in the external world. Now that we've done a basic deconstruction of the 3 ESG factors, we need to ask, why is ESG now becoming so important for corporates? And fundamentally, it's because a company's broad range of stakeholders now view it as increasingly important. Good ESG performance has become an indicator of how well managed a company is generally, and is being increasingly linked to the long-term financial success of a company. This is important for a company's shareholders who own the company, as well as other investors. A company's ESG performance also indicates that the company contributes positively to a country's ESG goals, including those around the reduction of carbon emissions, the preservation of natural ecosystems and biodiversity, and providing security of livelihoods of local communities. This is important for national governments where they've set ESG targets, a company's employees who generally feel better about working for a company that has positive ESG impacts, as well as its customers, who are increasingly avoiding doing business with companies with poor ESG records. Regulators are now increasingly imposing ESG-related requirements across different sectors. These range from requirements on how corporates manage ESG issues to what a company must disclose together with its annual filings and reports. It's also important to note that ESG factors create risks for corporates, but also creates opportunities for companies that are proactive in identifying them. For example, an ESG-conscious manufacturer or an airline may be able to tap into eco-conscious consumer markets, and energy producers may well see opportunities in diversifying their energy production into green energy. I really hope this video has provided a basic deconstruction and demystification of the term ESG and why it's become so important in the corporate world. In future videos, we'll be taking a deeper look into specific ESG topics. If you'd like to see these, please like and subscribe to ESG Explained, and include a comment below if there are any specific topics you'd like us to cover as we look to deconstruct and demystify ESG for everyone.